Welcome to our small channel. Today we have an incredible story to share about a man who survived and lived in the sea for 438 days. This is currently the record for the longest period of survival at sea. But before we delve into the story, please press the like button to support us and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Now let's get back to the topic of the video and try to grasp the amazing story and the hardships this man endured. To fully understand the man's journey, we need to talk about the Pacific Ocean, which is the largest ocean on Earth, covering approximately 1/3 of its surface. The Pacific Ocean is mostly empty, except for a few scattered islands. The likelihood of someone finding you if you're lost in it is almost negligible, and this is what makes our story today even more astonishing and unique. The events that unfolded during his journey will leave you in awe and make you truly appreciate how this man managed to survive for such a long time. José Salvador Alvarenga, from the Republic of El Salvador in Central America, currently holds the record for the longest time someone has been lost at sea. He survived for 438 days, and it's highly unlikely that anyone will break this record anytime soon due to the significantly higher chances of death before surpassing it. His ordeal began as a simple fishing trip that was supposed to last for only 2 days. José Salvador Alvarenga, an experienced fisherman, usually went on these fishing trips with his constant companion. However, due to his friend's unfortunate circumstances, he couldn't join him on that day. So Alvarenga had to find another person to accompany him, and he met a 23-year-old young man named Ezequiel Cordoba. They embarked on their journey on November 17, 2012, from their small town known as Costa Azul, located on the Mexican coast facing the Pacific Ocean. Their plan was to go out for about 30 hours in a small and humble fishing boat that was not equipped for the nightmare they were about to face, neither in terms of space nor provisions. The boat was about 7 meters long, had no roof or cabin, but it had a small motor. Their only belongings were fishing tools and a cooler to store the fish they caught. They were also aware of an approaching storm in the area, but their circumstances at that time forced them to go out and earn their livelihood. So they decided to seize the opportunity and traveled more than 120 kilometers away from the coast to the suitable fishing area. It was 1 a.m. when the storm hit them, and it had the potential to capsize their boat and sink it. Out of fear and the difficulty they faced in dealing with the storm, they started throwing most of their tools and belongings overboard, including fishing gear and the catch they had accumulated during that time, which amounted to thousands of dollars. They did this to lighten the weight of the boat and enable it to move more easily and flexibly. They were about 6 hours away from the coast at that time, so they set off during the stormy night, desperately trying to return to the shore by 7 a.m. They were only 24 kilometers away from the coast, and they could even see the mountains on the horizon. But unfortunately, luck was not on their side. The boat's engine suddenly stopped, and they had no other means of propulsion, such as oars or sails. The winds and the storm once again played with them, gradually pulling them away into the vast ocean without any means to resist. However, they were fortunate to have a radio through which they could communicate with their boss since they were relatively close to the coast. They informed him about their situation and their current location. The boss assured them that he would come as quickly as possible and inform the Coast Guard and the relevant authorities to mobilize a search operation. Unfortunately, during their communication, the battery of the radio they had ran out, and suddenly their last hope vanished. Imagine being in their shoes, suddenly losing the only means you had to communicate with the outside world, and becoming completely isolated at sea, with the land and mountains you could see gradually disappearing before your eyes. It's hard to imagine the extent of despair and frustration they felt at that moment. Their boss quickly mobilized a group of fishermen to search for them, and even the Coast Guard deployed boats and aircraft to locate them. They continued the search for several days, but unfortunately the winds had carried their boat a considerable distance. In just 5 days, they were 450 kilometers away from the coast, with nothing around them except the vast ocean in all directions. Their boat was so small that it would have been nearly impossible for people to spot them from the sky, even if a plane or helicopter passed by. They had no way to signal for help, no signal flare, not even a distinctive colored piece of cloth. They had no means to indicate their presence to others, and they knew that their chances of rescue were almost non-existent. But even with dwindling supplies, a lack of tools after discarding them, and their shattered morale, their survival instincts kicked in. They had to find a way to adapt and survive, In terms of food, they were forced to catch fish and birds with their bare hands near the boat and eat them raw. They collected some plastic water bottles they found at sea and used them to collect rainwater whenever it rained. But there were long periods without rain, so they resorted to drinking the blood of the turtles they caught. Sometimes, in desperate moments, they even drank their own urine, although drinking urine is not beneficial and can be harmful. But in such extreme circumstances, it's hard to say what one would do. I understand the challenging conditions and the psychological toll it takes on a person to endure such circumstances. To imagine living day after day, month after month, in a small boat with limited resources and only one person to talk to can indeed be mentally exhausting. According to the account you mentioned, the young Cordoba's companion started losing his sanity after 4 months, experiencing severe psychological distress and even contemplating suicide. As time went on, his physical condition deteriorated further due to the raw food they consumed, and he reached a point where he could no longer eat and eventually passed away. Just 4 months had passed, and Salvador was left alone with a long journey still ahead of him. It's difficult to comprehend the immense mental and physical strain they endured. Being isolated in the middle of the ocean, surrounded by water in all directions, can create a deep sense of loneliness and hopelessness. I can only imagine the inner strength and resilience it would take to preserve one's sanity in such a situation. The psychological aspect becomes even more challenging when there is no one else to share the burden with. It's a solitary battle against the elements and one's own mind. The location where Salvador was stranded in the middle of the Pacific Ocean is considered one of the most desolate places on Earth. Very few ships pass through these areas, making it even more isolated. According to the account, a cargo ship did pass by at some point, and Salvador tried desperately to get their attention, waving and signaling to them. 4 crew members on the ship reportedly saw him and waved back, but the ship continued on its course without stopping. It's heartbreaking to imagine Salvador's state of mind after this encounter, having been lost at sea for months and still unable to find help. And suddenly he saw a ship and felt hope, finally seeing a chance to escape the hell he was in. All his hope vanished in an instant. He says the thought seriously crossed his mind to kill himself twice during the lost period. He says he raised the knife to his neck, ready to take his own life, but he was too afraid of death and the pain he would endure. 11 months had passed, and Salvador had traveled a distance of up to 8,000 kilometers on the small boat. His clothes were torn, and he had only a piece of cloth to protect himself from the sun. He remained alone and lost in the middle of the vast ocean, and he stayed in this state for several additional months, totaling around 14 months since he went missing. That long-awaited day, Salvador noticed coconuts floating in the sea and saw an increase in bird activity in the area. He realized there must be land or an island nearby. It took him almost half a day until the features of the island became clear to him. He decided to jump from the boat and swim towards the island. He initially believed that this island was uninhabited, but he found a house and sought help from the people there. Finally, after 438 days since leaving his village and traveling approximately 11,000 kilometers, he made contact with another human being. The island Salvador reached was named Bon Atoll, located before the Philippines by a distance. If he hadn't been fortunate enough to reach this island, he most likely would have seen land only in the Philippines, which still remained more than 5,000 kilometers away from this island. It would have taken him more than 240 additional days to reach it. After news spread about his discovery, the authorities arranged for his return to his home country. After his recovery and receiving significant media coverage, Salvador decided to write a book recounting his experiences. However, the family of the young man who was with him in the boat passed away. They decided to sue him, accusing him of killing their son for food. By the way, this possibility is not far-fetched because there are indeed stories of people getting lost and resorting to cannibalism to survive. The psychological and physical conditions that individuals experience in such situations can drive them to do something like that. It is a possible scenario, and of course if he did it, he would deny such an act. But I don't think anyone can know for sure. What do you think? Do you believe it's possible that he did it and ate his companion? Write your thoughts in the comments. That concludes our segment for today. Thank you for watching, and you are a special person to us.